Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I thought that I would practice some watercolor portraits because honestly, I'm rubbish at them and I wanted to be a little less rubbish at them, so I thought that it would be a good idea to practice some watercolor portraits. All the references that I'm using in this video can be found on my Pinterest board if you want to check it out. The link will be in the description for you. So first I am laying down the sketch for the portrait and then I'll go over it with a kneaded eraser to lighten the sketch a bit because I don't want the graphite to interact with the water while I'm painting because it would muddy the colors a bit. So the first painting was kind of a warm-up really, and I actually had no clue about the colors that I was going to use. I just went in with a very light wash of yellow that was going to be my base layer for the painting. And then I just began to build the colors from there. The first one took a really long time, as you can see, because I was very unsure about the colors that I was using, and I was very afraid to actually go in and put in the darker values that would add contrast to the painting and would actually make it look good. And I think that's a mistake that most beginners, including myself, do because if you don't add the darker values, your painting wouldn't look as realistic or as good as it would if you would add the contrast. So yeah, don't be afraid to add the darker values. They're really, really important. And that's something that I should keep in mind as well while I'm painting. So after each portrait, I lay down the colors that I used for that particular portrait on the side so that you can see the color palette as well. The second portrait was again a bit difficult for me because this was a cool stone. Uh, this was a cool tone skin. And what I mean by cool tone skin is that the reference image had an almost bluish skin tone and it was very brightly lit, so the highlights were almost white and all the skin tones were actually near the shadow areas like around the eyes or under the nose and the shadow that is cast by their hair and stuff like that. So what needs to be done to paint this kind of skin tone is that you need to go for the wet on dry technique here and then pull the colors towards the highlights so that it gives like a 3D effect and looks like skin. What this means is you lay down the color on a dry surface, more pigment, less water, and then while it is still dry, you go in with a clean wet brush and pull the wet color towards the highlight areas so that you get a nice smooth blend between the skin tone and the highlights. I will probably make like a proper video on watercolor techniques in the near future. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. But I mostly use the wet on wet technique to paint in larger areas like the skin so that I can get an even wash of color on the paper. And I use the wet on dry technique and the pull method to paint in the shadows and the facial features like the eyes, nose, etc. So, from this third portrait onwards, I decided to stylize my portraits a bit. Stylizing is when you exaggerate certain facial features that stand out to you and make it look kind of cartoony. So here I was trying out kind of a semi-realistic meets cartoony. Yeah, I was trying to do something. And I was basically just trying to figure out my own style because it was just something that I personally wanted to practice as well. Make sure to always test out your colors first on a scrap piece of paper before you move on to the actual painting, and wait for it to dry so that you can see how the colors look after they have dried, because the colors do tend to look a little bit different after they have dried. So yeah, always test out your colors first. In this particular portrait, his skin was looking a little dull, but as I added the background, you see that the skin looks a lot better. So, work on different parts of your painting simultaneously so that you can see how the surrounding colors affect each other. The type of paper that you use plays a very important, if not the most important, role in your watercolor paintings. So make sure you always use paper meant for watercolor, which is typically around 300 GSM. The paper that I'm using here is Daler-Rowney, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Daler-Rowney cold pressed watercolor paper. I once tried to use regular sketchbook paper, which was not at all meant to handle lots of layers of water, and the paper warped so much that all the colors ran into each other and the painting was completely messed up. So, yeah, watercolor paper, very important. Yeah, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Don't be afraid to mess up and make bad paintings because they teach you a lot of things that you probably never thought of before. So, yeah, remember to have fun and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day and a great week ahead of you, and stay home, stay safe, and yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.